When Nathan Graves walked into that boardroom carrying the breach notice, I was 40 miles away on my boat off Cape May, drinking Macallan 18 and watching it all unfold on a burner Slack account nobody had thought to revoke. Tyler Ashford's face went white as paper. His father Gerald sat frozen at the head of the table, and the CFO looked like he was calculating his own financial ruin in real time. They still hadn't figured out I'd planted the tripwire 8 years earlier. Let me back up. 2 weeks before that boardroom implosion, Tyler dropped my security badge into a plastic bin like it was a used coffee cup. "Your value has been reassessed to 0, he said. "I'm Kyle Brennan, by the way. 53 years old. Spent the last 15 years as Chief Operating Officer of Ashford Technologies, back when it was still being built instead of disrupted." Tyler leaned back in the leather chair that used to belong to his father. Gerald Ashford had retired 6 months earlier to play golf in Arizona, leaving his 29-year-old son in charge. Tyler twirled a Mont Blanc pen like he was auditioning for a corporate drama. "You've been with us since what, the dial-up era?" He scrolled his phone with one hand. "Like firing me was just another task between ordering lunch and posting on LinkedIn. Look, we're streamlining, shedding legacy bloat. You're smart. I'm sure you'll land somewhere." Behind him stood Madison, his 24-year-old assistant with a finance degree and 0 operational experience. She actually snorted like he'd just delivered a killer punchline. 2 interns in matching blazers tried not to look human. I didn't answer, just stood there with my hands behind my back, the way I used to stand during investor briefings, the way I stood when our servers caught fire one winter and we had to reroute $6 million in contracts overnight, the way you stand when you know something they don't. Tyler tossed a manila envelope across the desk. "HR put together a generous exit package. Security will walk you out in 10. I bent down to pick it up. Not because I cared about severance. I just wanted to see if he'd flinch when I stood back up. He didn't. That's when I saw it hanging slightly crooked behind him. The original investor covenant. Framed on the wall like a trophy. The one I'd helped draft 8 years ago in a conference room with bad coffee and 3 attorneys who secretly hated each other. My name was still on it. Bottom right corner. Critical infrastructure. Architect. Kyle Brennan. I let myself smile. Just for a second. Tyler didn't notice. Too busy fumbling with his father's executive signature stamp, pressing it down on my termination form without even aligning it. Left Gerald's name smeared and crooked across the line marked authorized termination. Then he stood up, clearly signaling I should leave. Madison tried to open the door for me, but the handle stuck. I opened it myself, just like I'd opened the last 5 compliance renewals, the last 4 strategic partnerships, and every back channel to our biggest investors. I walked out without turning back, didn't say a word, didn't grab the gratitude basket HR had placed by the elevator, just kept walking, out of the building, into the afternoon sun, home, where my encrypted archive sat waiting. I kicked off my shoes and poured 2 fingers of that Macallan. The burn was smooth, familiar. 15 years of discipline in a glass. Then I powered up my personal workstation. Not the company laptop I'd left on my desk. This was different. My vault. The encrypted server I'd built in 2016 and kept running beneath my home office desk. Password accepted. Biometric scan confirmed. The interface flickered to life. I navigated to the legal folder and opened the most recent copy of the funding covenant. Same clause, same font, same signature from Leonard Shaw, managing partner at Everlock Capital, our primary investor. There it was. Clause 14C. Kyle Brennan, designated critical infrastructure architect and compliance officer. Any involuntary termination triggers breach remedy. Mandatory investor notification required within 96 hours. Failure to notify constitutes material breach subject to asset forfeiture or control assumption. I scrolled to the margin notes. The last comment from Pierce Holloway, my attorney, sat there from our 6-month review. Dead man's switch remains active. System authentication required every 90 days or compliance alerts auto-trigger to SEC and Everlock oversight. I leaned back in my chair, remembering the exact day we wrote that clause. 8 years earlier. Conference room B7. Pierce wore mismatched socks and drank espresso like medicine. He didn't trust our CFO back then. I didn't trust Gerald's succession planning, so we compromised in writing. If they ever try to cut you out, Pierce had said, tapping his pen on the draft, this clause guarantees consequences. I'd laughed. You think they'd be that stupid? He looked at me like I'd just asked if water was wet. They're executives. Eventually, yes. Now here I was, 8 years later, watching that prophecy come true. I closed the file and picked up my phone. Pierce answered on the second ring. No hello, just silence. The kind that means he's already reading the situation. Activate the redline file, I said. Version 4.2. Pause. Then just one word. Understood. No questions, no small talk. Just execution. Because unlike Tyler, Pierce actually reads footnotes. I hung up and took another sip of scotch. Outside my window, the sun was setting over the neighborhood. Kids playing basketball in a driveway. Someone mowing their lawn. Normal life continuing while I just activated a financial tripwire that would detonate in approximately 96 hours. While Tyler and his espresso-drinking interns were busy gamifying leadership, I'd spent 15 years building systems so critical that removing me would be like pulling a keystone from an arch. Every API certificate I'd personally signed, every two-factor authentication protocol, every SOC2 Type 2 compliance workflow. All of it hard-coded with my RSA encryption keys from 2014. No Kyle, no access. That simple. I opened my monitoring dashboard and watched the first automated notification deploy, one to Everlock's legal team. Timestamp, 6:47 p.m. The game had started. I hadn't moved a single piece, and already the dominoes were falling. It took less than 48 hours for Tyler to start dancing on my grave. He posted a company-wide Slack announcement titled, Phase 1, Operational Evolution with a fire emoji and a lightning bolt. I nearly choked on my coffee when a former colleague forwarded it to me. This week, we begin streamlining legacy infrastructure and energizing our workflows, he wrote, as if he hadn't just fired the man who built those workflows. Please welcome Trevor Sinclair as our new CTO. Trevor brings fresh vision, elite coding skills, and an exciting lens on modern development. Trevor, 29 years old, Stanford CS dropout. Could write brilliant Python but had zero understanding of enterprise architecture. The kind of guy who thinks move fast and break things applies to financial compliance systems managing $200 million in liability exposure. By noon that day, the engineering team was in full panic mode. My phone lit up with texts. Hey, do you know where the supplier compliance tracker lives? Can't find anything post Q3. Did you submit the EU cross-border data forms? Legal's asking. Wait, who handles the API authentication renewals now? I didn't respond. Let them sit with it. By Friday, someone had tried to duplicate my access templates and locked 3 internal servers. The audit portal kicked back 6 incomplete filings. Trevor's outsourced IT team from Mumbai deployed new cloud infrastructure without understanding the security protocols I'd spent a decade building. Then the real fun started. Day 3 after my termination, our primary client integration started throwing errors. The API certificates I'd personally signed were expiring, and nobody had my cryptographic keys. A Fortune 50 company we'd served for 12 years suddenly couldn't access their data portal. Their CTO sent an email at 4 a.m. Subject line, urgent, system access failure. Body was 3 words, fix this now. Tyler's response, according to my inside source, was to tell Trevor to just regenerate the certs. You can't just regenerate certs when the original signing authority is cryptographically locked to a specific RSA key pair that only exists on one person's hardware security module. Mine. Sitting in my home office. Powered off. Week 1, our cyber insurance underwriter sent Gerald a letter. I never saw the original, but Pierce forwarded me a copy. Subject, policy compliance review required. The body was surgical, per policy terms. Section 7.3, Kyle Brennan was listed as named Critical Technical Officer and SOC2 Compliance Administrator. His departure constitutes a material change requiring immediate re-underwriting and potential policy termination. Translation, no Kyle, no coverage. And we were sitting on exposure that could bankrupt the company if anything went wrong. Week 2, the SEC's automated compliance filing system started rejecting our quarterly submissions. Turned out my digital signature was embedded in the submission protocols as the authorized compliance officer. You can't just swap that out. It's tied to my identity verification, my background check, my personal liability acceptance. Trevor's team tried to override it by submitting through a different portal. That triggered an automatic audit request from the SEC's enforcement division. Tyler's response to all this chaos? A 3-sentence Slack update ending with a flexed biceps emoji. Minor technical adjustments. We got this. Stay focused on the mission. Spoiler, they did not got this. The quarterly audit deadline for Everlock Capital came and went. No submission. Tyler either didn't know or didn't care. Too busy scheduling inspirational all-hands meetings about embracing change and posting filtered photos from his new executive wellness corner, which appeared to be an ergonomic chair next to a succulent. But Everlock noticed. Investors always notice. At precisely 9:02 on Monday morning, every member of the C-suite received an email from Everlock's oversight team. The subject line was sterile: urgent compliance review, personnel change notification received, no emojis, no pleasantries, just one line in the body. Per Clause 14C of the funding covenant, please prepare supporting documentation for immediate audit. Failure to comply will result in enforcement of breach protocols. Clause 14C, the one with my name on it. I was on my boat when that email landed. Phone off, line in the water. But I had that burner Slack account running on an old tablet, logged in as a generic admin profile nobody remembered existed. I watched the internal channels go absolutely silent for 3 hours. No motivational Spotify playlists, no momentum updates, just radio silence and a sudden calendar hold for all department heads. Investor readiness discussion. Then Gerald's name appeared in the building access logs. He'd flown back from Arizona. That's when I knew it was working. See, what Tyler didn't understand about Clause 14C is that it wasn't optional. It wasn't leverage or negotiation. It was a dead man's switch built into the legal architecture of the company itself. The moment my employment was terminated without investor notification, 3 things happened automatically. 1. Everlock received an encrypted alert from the compliance monitoring system I'd built. Timestamp, termination details, breach classification. 2. My personal liability coverage for SOC 2 compliance was automatically withdrawn, invalidating the company's certification until a replacement was verified and approved. That process takes minimum 90 days. 3. A cascading series of authentication failures began across every system I'd architected. Not crashes, just failures. API timeouts, certificate expirations, access denials, like watching a Jenga tower lose pieces one by one. I didn't have to do anything. The systems I'd built were doing exactly what I'd designed them to do. Protect the infrastructure, even from the company itself. I reeled in my line. Nothing biting today. Didn't matter. I had better entertainment than fishing. My tablet pinged. New message in the executive channel I wasn't supposed to see. Gerald Ashford, emergency board meeting. Tomorrow 8 a.m. Attendance mandatory. Then another ping. This one from Pierce. Everlock sending their lead auditor, Nathan Graves. He's not the negotiating type. I smiled and poured another finger of scotch from the flask I kept on the boat. The sun was setting over the water, painting everything orange and gold. Beautiful evening for watching a company realize they'd fired their own foundation. Tyler was mid-presentation when the boardroom doors opened. He'd been talking about quarterly visioning and rebranding compliance as a journey when Gerald Ashford walked in like a man who'd just watched his legacy catch fire. No warning, no smile, just a charcoal suit and a face that could cut glass. Every senior executive stood up so fast they nearly hit the ceiling. Madison tried to introduce herself. "Hi, I'm leading operations innovation now. It's such an honor to..." Gerald walked right past her like she was furniture. Everyone out. Tyler stayed seated. First mistake. Within seconds, the room cleared. Just him, his father, and Leonard Wells, the CFO. A thin man with permanent flop sweat who looked like he was calculating his own financial ruin. Gerald didn't sit. He stood at the head of the table, knuckles pressed into the wood like he was holding himself back from flipping it. What the hell is going on? Leonard swallowed hard enough to hear it. There's been a triggering event. The Covenant. Clause 14C. Gerald's eyes went cold. What is Clause 14C? Tyler shifted in his chair. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. Leonard's voice came out strangled. He fired Kyle Brennan. The words hit like a gunshot. Gerald didn't blink, didn't breathe, just stared. Then, "You fired who?" His voice ricocheted off the glass walls. Someone down the hallway dropped something, the sound of ceramic shattering. Tyler found his voice. "I was streamlining. Legacy mindset. We're pivoting to cloud-native AI-driven." Gerald slammed both palms on the table. The sound echoed like thunder. "Did you read the funding agreement before you gutted your own backbone? I'm the CEO now." Tyler's voice cracked slightly. "It's my call. No, you're the interim CEO, and this company is still bound to Everlock's investor controls, which you clearly didn't bother to learn." He turned to Leonard. "Pull the original covenant, now." Full version. Leonard scrambled like his chair was electrified. 30 seconds later, he was back with a thick red folder, hands trembling as he placed it on the table. Gerald opened it. His eyes moved with surgical precision, flipping pages until he found what he was looking for. Clause 14C, he read aloud. Designated Critical Infrastructure Architect, Kyle Brennan. Termination without investor consultation constitutes breach of agreement, enforceable by asset forfeiture or immediate control assumption. He looked up slowly, the kind of slow that makes your stomach drop. "Do you know what that means, Tyler?" Tyler crossed his arms. Defensive posture. "It means they'll bluff. They always do. They're already here." Gerald's voice went quiet. Deadly quiet. 3 Everlock auditors in the lobby. Formal notice of compliance breach on my phone. They're not bluffing. He picked up the folder and held it like evidence at a trial. "Do you have any idea what you've just done?" Tyler's mouth moved, but no sound came out. The silence in that boardroom must have been suffocating. "I know because I was listening to the whole thing through Laura Kowalski's phone. My former deputy, 20 years of service, had been fired by Tyler 3 days after me. She'd called me that morning, put her phone on mute, and left it recording on the credenza." Gerald turned back to Leonard. "Get legal. The real team, not whatever startup consultants Tyler's been using. I need to know exactly how bad this is." Then he looked at his son one more time. "No anger now, just disbelief. You handed them a loaded weapon and pulled the trigger because you thought it was a productivity app." That's when Nathan Graves walked in. No knock, no announcement, just the click of expensive shoes on tile and the sudden appearance of a man in a slate gray suit holding a leather portfolio. "Good morning, everyone." His voice could sand wood. Nathan Graves, lead auditor, Everlock Capital. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Gerald straightened. Tyler tried to smile, but it came out wrong, frozen, desperate. "Nathan, of course. We were just reviewing—" Nathan didn't shake his hand, didn't even look at it. He walked calmly to the head of the table and placed a thick document in the center. The original funding covenant, marked up in red ink like a teacher grading a failed exam. He tapped the page once. My name was underlined, highlighted, circled in red. Kyle Brennan. "This clause," Nathan said, his voice flat and precise. "Clause 14C, Critical Infrastructure Architect Designation, triggered automatically upon involuntary termination without investor advisement." Tyler opened his mouth, but Gerald raised a hand. "Stop talking," Nathan continued without pause. "Per terms of contract, your firm has 96 hours to either reinstate Mr. Brennan in full capacity or settle the breach penalty." He looked directly at Tyler. "Failure to do either results in immediate enforcement of seizure protocol." The word seizure hung in the air like smoke. Gerald's jaw flexed. Leonard looked ready to pass out. "We've frozen all draw access from Everlock-managed funds pending resolution," Nathan added. "Provisional hold on your Series D release. The language is clear. Any removal of designated stakeholders nullifies active funding agreements until corrective action is taken." He stepped back and adjusted his cufflinks. The gesture was casual, almost bored. "To be clear, this isn't a negotiation. The timer started 72 hours ago. You have 24 hours remaining." Then he turned and walked toward the door. Stopped. Looked back. "I'll return Thursday morning at 8 with counsel and transfer documentation. I suggest you have your answer ready." The door closed behind him with a soft click. Nobody moved. Tyler sank into his chair. "No one's actually going to seize anything," he said, voice small now, almost a whisper. "Right? This is just pressure. Leverage." Gerald didn't answer. He just stared out the window at the parking lot below. Leonard looked up from his calculator. His face was gray. We don't even have half that liquid. The penalty is $67 million. We'd have to liquidate R&D and default on payroll. And reinstatement? Tyler's voice cracked. He's not coming back. I'll call him. Offer triple. He won't, Gerald said quietly. Tyler blinked. How do you know? Because I already called him. The room went silent again. When? Tyler asked. This morning. From the airport. Gerald's voice was flat. Dead. He said no. Tyler's face went white, and somewhere 40 miles away I was pouring another scotch, watching the sun set over the ocean and waiting for Thursday morning. Thursday morning arrived with the kind of clarity you only get after a storm. At precisely 8:03, a courier in a dark suit walked into Ashford Technologies' lobby. He didn't make eye contact with anyone, just handed a sealed envelope to the receptionist and left. Inside, 3 crisp pages on Everlock capital letterhead and a cover note. This letter serves as formal notice of material breach under Clause 14C of the funding covenant. Please prepare for transition procedures effective immediately. The grace period had expired 15 minutes earlier. I know because Pierce forwarded me the time-stamped delivery confirmation. I was in my home office, second cup of coffee, watching my monitoring dashboard like it was the Super Bowl. The boardroom at Ashford Technologies sat in silence, not tense silence, terminal silence. The kind that settles in when everyone realizes they've already lost and they're just waiting for someone to make it official. Nathan Graves entered at 8:15. Same slate suit, same expressionless face. He carried a briefcase that looked like it cost more than most people's cars. He didn't sit, just walked to the head of the table and placed a small black box in the center. Looked like something you'd use to store encryption keys or launch codes. Contained within, Nathan said, voice flat and professional, are the master credentials for Ashford Technologies' internal architecture, investor portals, compliance frameworks, digital access infrastructure. He let that sink in. The transition log has been time-stamped and filed with the SEC. All prior administrative access has been revoked as of 0800 hours this morning. Leonard Wells made a sound somewhere between a whimper and a cough. Didn't object. Just pushed his chair back slightly, like he didn't want to be physically close to this moment. Tyler sat perfectly still, hands folded on the table like a student waiting for expulsion. No performance left, no confidence. Just the hollow shape of ambition that had run face first into consequences. Nathan opened his briefcase and pulled out a document, placed it on the table with surgical care. Here is the revised operating agreement. Per investor directive, operational oversight and compliance advisory will now be managed exclusively by Brennan Strategic Group. Murmurs around the table. Soft. Stunned. Not angry. Just defeated. Kyle Brennan has accepted advisory rights and equity compensation. He will not be returning as an employee. All communications with Everlock Capital must route through his office moving forward. Nobody argued. What could they say? Tyler blinked. Finally. Like waking from a dream where he was CEO and discovering it was always just temporary. His gaze went to Gerald, hoping for something. A shield, an exit, a last-minute save. Gerald never looked at him, just stared straight ahead, face like carved stone. Nathan closed his briefcase with a soft click. Any questions? Silence. Then we're done here. He left the black box on the table, walked out without another word. As people began filing out quietly, quickly, like leaving the scene of an accident, Tyler stayed seated, long enough that everyone noticed, long enough to see that the crown hadn't just fallen off, it had been taken, cleanly, legally, inevitably. Eventually, he stood, gathered his things, his phone, that coffee mug that said disrupt or die. He walked into the hallway and stopped. Because there it was, mounted on the wall outside the boardroom where everyone would see it. A maintenance tech on a ladder, tightening the last screw. New nameplate. Dark walnut. Backlit with soft white LEDs. Brennan Strategic Group. Executive oversight underneath. In clean sans serif font. Kyle Brennan, Chief Strategic Officer. Tyler stared at it. Long enough that he was still standing there when the elevator doors closed behind the last executive leaving the floor. Gerald called me that afternoon. I was on my boat again. Phone on. This time I wanted to hear it. Kyle. His voice sounded 20 years older than it had a month ago. I know I already asked. But I need to ask again. I didn't say anything. Let him work for it. Come back, not as an employee, as partner, full board seat, equity stake, executive chairman if you want it. Name your terms. I watched a seagull land on the bow of my boat. It cocked its head, looking at me like it knew I was about to say something important. Gerald, I appreciate the offer. I do, but I'm exactly where I want to be. Silence on his end. You built something good, I continued. Then you handed it to someone who didn't understand what he was holding. That's not my problem to fix anymore. Tyler's stepping down, Gerald said quietly. Effective immediately. I'm taking interim control until we find someone qualified. Good call. About 6 months late, but good. Another pause. Then, the nameplate, your firm. You're really not coming back? I'm doing exactly what I want, Gerald. Advising, consulting, building systems for people who actually value infrastructure. And I'm doing it on my terms. I heard him exhale, long and slow. For what it's worth, he said. You were right. About all of it. And I'm sorry. I know, I said. Take care of yourself. I hung up before he could say anything else. The sun was setting again. Fourth sunset I'd watched from this boat in 2 weeks. Each one better than the last. My tablet buzzed. Email from Pierce. Everlock finalized the agreement. 8.5% equity stake in Ashford Technologies. Board seat. Veto power on all technical hires. Your nameplate goes in the main lobby tomorrow. Gold lettering this time. I smiled and typed back. Make it brass. Gold's too much. He sent back a single word. Done. I poured the last of my scotch into the water. Old sailing tradition, offering to the sea. Then I pulled up my line and started the motor. Time to head back to shore. Clause 14C wasn't revenge. It was engineering. I built systems so good that removing me broke everything. Not because I sabotaged anything, because I was the foundation. When you build infrastructure right, it doesn't fail when you leave. It makes everyone realize they needed you all along. Tyler thought disruption meant breaking things. I showed him what happens when you break the wrong thing. The system corrected itself, just like I designed it to. And now I'm sitting here 8.5% richer, watching the sun go down over water I don't have to share with anyone. That's not revenge. That's just good architecture. Build yourself into the foundation. Make yourself so essential that removing you costs more than keeping you would ever cost. Then watch what happens when someone's arrogant enough to try. Systems outlast egos. Always have. Always will. I'm proof.